And it's Monday morning. Today we read Matthew 14, 1 through 12. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus and said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him." For Herod had seized John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." And though he wanted to put him to death, he feared the people, because they held him to be a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter." And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given. He sent and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and they went and told Jesus. So the death of John the Baptist. Herod is convinced that Jesus is actually John the Baptist resurrected because of Jesus' powers, the miracles and things that he does. Herod had John the Baptist put to death because John was condemning Herod. Herod was had taken up with his brother Philip's wife. I don't know how Philip felt about any of this, but Herod was bound by his oaths to do what his daughter and stepdaughter asked him to do, and she said, "Well, give me the head of John the Baptist." And he couldn't risk embarrassment in front of his guests, and so he said, "Okay, bring me his head." And they did. It's kind of interesting, just for a moment, if you read the history, and you can look it up on Wikipedia, death of John the Baptist. His body is taken away by the disciples and buried somewhere, and I think it was moved a couple of times. But nobody ever had his head. And then his head was discovered somewhere at some point, and it was moved a couple of times, and I think finally reunited with the body in some tomb somewhere. We don't revere John the Baptist much in the Protestant traditions, but other traditions really do. And I think that's right. I think we should pay more attention to John. But at this stage in the story, of course, the disciples then go to tell Jesus, and Jesus is pretty shaken by this. I don't know that he and John were close, though they may have been. Their message was similar, and they were certainly united in the fact that John had baptized Jesus and was the forerunner who pointed to Jesus coming, and so they were connected. And so the death of John affects Jesus, and he realizes, "Oh, I'm next." And indeed he was. So we see here several things. We see John had disciples. John's disciples held his message in some esteem. We don't have that same esteem for it, but as I said, perhaps we should. We see that Jesus knew and loved John the Baptist, and we see a little bit of insight into Jesus' life and his sort of private life and his thinking, because he will go off and spend some time in prayer and mourning, I guess, John the forerunner. So let's keep that in mind today. Have a good day and stay dry. See you tomorrow.